做 DSE 英文 reading 咧，最大嘅一個難題啦，就係你遇到一大堆嘅文字，佢哋嘅結構好亂，你睇到中間咧，你就會覺得佢係講緊乜嘢咧？佢指緊啲乜嘢咧？follow 唔到，呢個時候再彈多一兩個你完全冇見過嘅 vocabulary item，又或者係一啲你見過嘅 item，但係你唔明點解佢會擺咗喺呢一度。可能係因為嗰一個字有好多唔同嘅意思，而你熟悉嘅嗰個意思呢，就唔係佢呢篇文章入邊用嘅時候想表達嘅嗰個意思。所以呢幾樣嘢加埋一齊呢，就會令到眼花繚亂，導致到呢有好多嘅老師呢就會教一啲嘅技巧，就話唔係㗎，其實呢，你睇完某啲句子後邊就係個答案嚟㗎啦。咁但係其實好多時候呢，都係無所適從㗎呢啲技巧。咁所以呢，我會建議大家呢係真係去讀懂嗰篇文章。咁你話啦，可能英文底子唔好，點樣讀懂嗰篇文章呢？英文底子可以唔好，你嘅 vocabulary bank 可以唔夠闊，但係有一樣嘢唔可以唔知嘅，咁就係 clause 呢一樣嘢啦。clause 呢一樣嘢咧，我嘅理解咧就係佢係攞嚟補充一啲嘢嘅，但係咧喺閱讀感上嚟講咧，其實佢就有啲 interrupt嘅感覺嘅，因為佢係為咗某一個 subject、某一個 verb、某一個 object 去做一啲補充，但係佢偏偏要塞喺嗰個句子嘅中間，導致到你好緊張，考嗰陣時已經唔知睇緊啲咩嘅時候咧，仲要塞多嚿額外補充嘅入嚟，而呢一樣嘢佢又可以攞嚟出題目問你嘅噃，咁所以就會好困擾啦。咁所以咧今日呢條片咧主要係想介紹，究竟要點樣喺個文章入邊揾翻呢啲嘅 clause 出嚟，令到自己去揾翻一個句子最基本嘅結構，咁就做嘅時候唔會咁慌張。咁首先我哋要知道一個句子最基本會有嘅三樣嘢係 subject、verb、object。例如係 I gave Paul an apple， 咁 I gave Paul， 我係個 subject，gave 係個 verb，Paul係個 object，OK？咁咩叫 adjective、adverb 同埋 noun clause 呢？其實就係適用於形容唔同嘅嘢㗎。我哋知道 adjective 係嚟形容物件嘅，係嚟形容一個 subject、一個 object， 佢係形容一樣嘢。而 adverb 副詞咧，佢係形容緊一個動作，所以兩樣嘢咧，雖然得形容詞有個形容呢個字，但其實 adverb 都係形容嘅作用，只不過 adjective 係形容緊 noun，adverb 係形容緊個 verb。唔好意思。例如我很開心地上學，上學係個 verb， 很開心地係個 adverb。很開心係形容緊我返學嘅動作，所以 adverb 係形容緊 verb。個蘋果好好味係個好好味係形容緊個蘋果嘛。咁如果係我好快樂地吃一個蘋果，咁好快樂係形容緊吃呢一個動詞，蘋果如果加個美味啦嚇，咁就形容緊個蘋果啦。咁所以要釐清咗呢兩樣嘢先。咁好啦。所以如果我哋喺個句子見到一啲非常之長啊嘅 interrupters 嘅話咧，咁我哋先釐清翻究竟佢係 adjective clause 啊、adverb clause 啊，定係 noun clause 先。我哋先睇咗頭兩個先啦，啱到我都未介紹咩叫 noun clause。adjective clause 啦，咁啱啱解釋咗啦，佢係去 modify 個 noun 嘅，佢係去俾多一啲補充資料去講緊 noun，例如係個 students who participated enjoy the race。Who participated？ 佢係形容緊個學生參加咗呢場比賽嘛。但係其實呢個句子嘅主題，你冇咗個 who participated 係唔影響你理解噶嘛。The student enjoyed the race。啲學生好享受個賽跑，只不過佢 add 咗呢個 adjective clause，佢話俾你聽呢啲學生係佢參加咗呢個比賽嘅學生，而唔係喺看台上面嗰班學生。所以如果佢要改嘅話，The students who are sitting in the audience enjoyed the race。如果係 adverb clause 形容緊個動詞嘅話咧 ，they felt proud because they had done something worthwhile。佢 感到驕傲嘅呢一樣嘢嘅嗰個原因係因為佢哋做咗啲好值得嘅嘢啦。OK， 咁又係啦，睇翻個主句 ，they felt proud 係唔影響你理解噶嘛？係後邊呢一個 clause 成個 clause 係補充緊佢哋感到驕傲嘅呢一個動作啊嘛。OK， 咁所以呢個就係個 adverb clause。好啦，我講到而家都好似冇講過咩叫 clause 喎。咁 clause 咧，其實咧係可以係有動詞啦，都可以係有翻個 SVO 嘅喎。例如你見到 because SVO，佢哋做咗啲好 worthwhile 嘅嘢。咁所以我覺得就唔好困擾於咩個 clause 啦，但係一定要喺一個句子你識得去揾出一啲其實佢唔係屬於嗰個句子嘅主要嘅 SVO 嘅結構入邊嘅嘢。我再講多次，就係你去睇文章嘅時候，你需要去釐清邊一個句子嘅呢一個句子嘅邊一忽其實係唔屬於主體 SVO 入邊嘅，而係一啲 clause 嚟嘅，係一啲補充嘅嘢嚟嘅。你將佢框起咧，又或者你去 highlight 翻嗰個主要嘅 SVO 咧，成件事會好理解好多。咁咩叫 noun clause 啊？ noun clause 咧，佢就直接做 subject、object、indirect object 嘅，即係佢係呢度有個例子啦。What helps others can be rewarding for volunteers too。咁佢就係 what help others 係 SVO 嚟噶嘛，佢自己已經係一個 clause 嚟噶嘛，佢成個 clause 係 as 一個 noun 去用，所以佢叫 noun clause。上邊呢個 clause 係 as an adjective 去用，所以佢叫 adjective clause。下邊呢個 clause as an adverb 去用，所以佢叫 adverb clause。至於你可能會問，咁我成日想學嗰啲咩 relative clause 係咩嚟㗎？ relative clause 咧，其實就係如果你嗰個 adjective clause 係 begins with who、which、where、when 嘅話，就叫做 relative clause 啦。OK， 咁所以我哋而家先介紹最深嘅，當然啦，要介紹 clause 呢樣嘢仲有超多嘢去講，但係我淨係佢對於今日篇文章 relevant 嘅，我先講咗俾大家聽先啦。嗱，我都唔係專業嘅 ，OK， 我只不過將我嘅經驗話俾大家聽啫。咁呢度咧，我喺網上面再揾多到一個都幾好嘅例子去講咩叫做 adverb clause 啦。Whether he like it or not, he has to attend the meeting。呢一個 clause 係形容緊佢要去呢個 meeting 嘅嗰個心態，佢形容緊佢嘅動作噶嘛。佢呢一個佢 has to attend the meeting 嘅呢一個動作背後其實係背負住無論佢鍾唔鍾意都好嘅呢一個心態噶嘛。所以呢一句 whether he like or not as a clause， 佢係用，反正佢唔係形容緊佢啦，佢係形容緊佢去呢個 meeting 嘅呢件事啊嘛，所以形容緊個 verb 咯，所以佢係 as an adverb clause。OK， 咁花啲時間去咀嚼一下究竟呢件事係乜嘢。今日咧就揀咗一篇1994年嘅 Reflections on the Gulf War， 係 as an A-level 嘅 reading 嘅文章。咁我當初睇嘅時候咧都覺得，打仗呢啲嘢而家應該唔會出㗎啦。咁都睇嚟都冇意思啦。咁但係咧我真係用心睇完之後就覺得，其實入邊咧有好多 lesson 可以學到，唔係淨係我講 clause 呢一樣嘢，有好多嘅vocabulary item 啦，就好似一開始我所講，你會以為平時你讀開嘅係嗰個意思，但原來咧唔係嘅啦，即係一啲字嘅意思咧係我哋需要靠睇多啲文章先可以去吸收得到。再嚟就係我亦都會講埋under 呢篇文章嘅14條 MC 題目啦，本來嘅 A level， 同埋就係一啲我覺得如果擺喺而家 DSE 嘅話，佢可以咁樣出嘅一啲 short question 或者係 true or false等等啦。OK， 咁所以呢條片可能會有啲長啦嚇。咁所以就我哋第一步咧，我哋唔理你睇唔睇得明啲字先，我哋先做咗啲我哋能力範圍內可以做嘅，就係勾翻究竟每一個句子佢嘅 SVO 喺邊，然後去 identify 翻邊啲係 clause 嘅部分，係作補充嘅部分。咁我逐個嚟啦噃。第1991 Gulf conflict was not the first war in which human rights were used as a cover for less honourable motives。第一句咧已經有一個 clause 出現咗啦。1991嘅 Gulf conflict was not the first war。 其實呢度已經係一個 SVO 啦。S was not 啊嘛 ，VO 佢唔係第一個戰爭。咁可能呢個時候就真係會有個問號，咩叫做唔係第一個戰爭啊？咁所以佢後邊就解釋咗，用一個 clause in which human rights were used as a cover for less honourable motives。cover 掩蓋 less honourable 冇咁值得榮譽啦嘅一個動機。佢呢度講咩啊？ Human rights 人權係作為一個掩蓋，去掩蓋背後一啲冇咁光彩嘅動機。咁其實佢第一句已經點咗題㗎啦。Gulf conflict 美其名係為人權去打嘅一場仗，但其實人權只係美其名啫，背後係一啲冇咁光彩嘅動機。咁呢個係一個咩 clause 啊？呢個係一個 adjective clause 啦，cause 佢係形容緊個戰爭啊嘛。OK， 順帶一提，呢篇文咧出現咗有15個嘅角色啊。OK， 咁呢15個角色咧，亦都係我唯一一個覺得你真係需要去知道嘅字咯。如果你唔知呢個字，你會睇得好辛苦。呢15個角色就係國家嚟嘅。OK， 咁我稍後都會用綠色筆去標俾大家啦。第一個就已經係 Kuwaiti 啦。OK，Kuwaiti babies。The fictional Kuwaiti babies removed from their incubators by Iraqi troops were mythical descendants。OK， 首先揾翻個 SVO 出嚟先，唔好咁緊張。The fictional Kuwaiti babies 啦，OK， 咁 babies 應該知咩 ？The babies 都應該知係咩？唔知咩叫 fictional， 唔知咩叫 Kuwaiti 都唔緊要。The fictional babies， 咁 S 喺度啦，咁嚟緊應該係 V 嘅咯喎。Removed from their 呢個好似唔係好 follow 得到平時嘅 SVO 嘅嘢喎，因為如果你想講 the fictional babies were removed， 咁應該有個 were 喺度噶嘛，佢係 passive voice 嚟噶嘛，唔係，咁揾翻個 were 先 ，were mythical descendants of the Belgian babies。呢一句嘅主句就喺度啦，佢係佢。OK， 呢一句就完咗啦。The fictional babies 係 the mythical descendants of Belgian babies。OK，mythical descendants 係奇妙或者係係啦神秘嘅一啲後代啦。of Belgian babies。OK， 呢個係第二個出現嘅角色啦，即係話一個虛構啦，fictional 嘅 Kuwaiti babies were mythical descendants of the Belgian babies。咁我哋睇下 what happened to these two groups of people。The fictional babies removed from their incubators by Iraq。原來咧第三個角色出嚟啦，Iraq 嘅軍隊嘅 troops，OK，係 remove from 將呢啲 BB 啦，從佢哋嘅 incubator 即係栽培器啦拎走咗。OK， 咁我哋知道 OK 第一個 message 我哋知道啦，就係 Iraq 個軍人 remove 嗰啲 Kuwaiti 嘅 babies from 佢哋嘅 incubators 咯。咁栽培器啦 OK， 咁呢啲讀過大我應該知咩叫 incubate 嘅。OK， 讀過 science 應該都知咩叫 incubate 嘅，唔知就而家知啦。OK， 咁可能冇人知點解佢要咁樣做喎。但係我哋而家就知道嘅第二個資訊就係依啲嘅 BB 咧 ，suppose 係 mythical descendants of the Belgian babies， 即係話應該係 Belgian 嘅 BB 嘅後代嚟㗎噃。OK， 依啲嘅 Kuwaiti 嘅 BB 咧 ，suppose 係Belgian 嘅 BB 嘅後代嚟嘅。好啦，第三個資訊咯喎 ，supposedly slaughtered by German troops in World War One。呢個係咩嚟㗎？都係 clause 嚟㗎喎，形容緊乜嘢啊？佢連住 Belgian babies 啊嘛，咁好你好 理所當然係講緊佢啦。佢係一個 adjective clause 形容緊 Belgian babies。呢啲 BB 應該喺第一次世界大戰嘅時候就俾啲德軍殺死咗㗎啦噃。我記所以第三個資訊，呢啲嘅 Belgian 嘅 BB 咧 ，suppose 在sorry 唔好意思，喺第一次世界大戰嘅時候咧，就已經被德軍咧殺死咗啦。好，我哋再睇一次成句講緊啲乜嘢，一啲虛構嘅 Kuwaiti 科威特啊 ，OK 嘅 BB，suppose 咧就係應該係一啲 Belgian 嘅 BB 嘅後代嚟嘅，而依啲嘅 Belgian 嘅 BB 嘅後代咧，本來應該係要俾德軍喺第一次世界大戰就殺死咗㗎啦噃。第一樣嘢，呢度有兩個已經係好唔 make sense 嘅嘢啦。第一，究竟呢啲嘅 Belgian BB 係咪真係有一啲科威特嘅後代咧？呢個係第一個問題。Belgian 嘅 BB 係咪真係有科威特嘅後代？唔係，因為係 fictional 嘅。第二個疑點，啲 Belgian 嘅 BB 係咪真係有俾 German troops 喺 World War One 殺死？冇，因為佢用咗 supposedly 呢個字。即係你啲老師咪好中意，喂，你 suppose 今日要交嗰份功課，咁即係你有冇交到？冇嘛。OK，咁呢個真係一個關於語境嘅問題啦。即係你聽到 suppose 呢個字，你應該係代表有啲嘢冇發生到啦。但係又好似表面上有人同你講啊，即係例如咧，你同你屋企人講你已經執完間屋企啦，跟住媽媽翻嚟就話你唔係 suppose 打理完你間屋嘅啦咩？咁即係你冇啦。OK，仲有第三樣嘢都係假㗎。如果呢啲科威特嘅 BB 冇存在過係虛構嘅話，又會唔會有 Iraq 嘅軍隊去 remove them from their incubator 咧？呢樣嘢都唔係真嘅喎。所以即係話呢一句咁長嘅句子有三樣嘢都唔係真嘅喎。好啦，下一個問題就係、我就咁講呢度應該用咗差唔多10分鐘啦。講科威特 BB， 講 Belgian BB， 講 Iraq troops 做咗呢啲行為，又講啲 Belgian BB suppose 應該俾人殺咗，目的係乜嘢？點解要講？上一句係講緊 Gulf conflict 美其名係為人權而打嘅一場仗，下邊就話有啲 BB 無辜咧就俾人掹走咗。咁 given that 無辜 BB 俾人掹走咗呢件事係假㗎嘛？即係話好大機會地呢啲嘅 BB 就係嗰個 Gulf conflict 嘅導火線啊！因為啲人就話你點可以咁樣對啲 BB 㗎？你好違反人權噃。咁所以亦都解釋咗點解人權係美其名啦，因為呢單嘢都唔係真嘅。OK，有時睇電視劇咁樣啦，係咪？係啦，如果唔明嘅我就停咗佢，自己再諗一諗啦嚇。好，咁繼續噶啦噃。Yet for many people，OK，首先你會覺得好亂啊。Yet 啲乜嘢？但係啲乜嘢？我哋要知道嘅係呢一句 the fictional 去到呢一個位，呢一句嘢其實只係佢解釋緊第一句嘅啫。我哋先揞住佢，唔好睇住。1991年嘅 Gulf conflict 咧，唔係第一次人權咧去俾嚟做美其名去掩蓋一啲冇咁光彩嘅 motive 㗎啦。但係對於好多人嚟講咧，人權嘅 concern 咧就好順理成章地令到啲人好想剷除 Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait and preferably from Iraq too。呢度講緊乜？首先第5個人物出現咗啦 ，Saddam Hussein。我哋可以應該好用正常即係 OK， 即係平均嘅英文水平，會知道就係啲人好想第5呢個人離開科威特同埋離開 Iraq， 係咪？係因為人權嘅問題啊嘛。啱啱上面呢件事係邊個違反緊人權啊？因為 Iraq 嘅軍隊 對於科威特嘅 BB 不利啊嘛，即係話呢件事應該係 Saddam Hussein 做嘅啦。Saddam Hussein 望落去似一個人名咯，咁即係話如果係 Iraq 做嘅，即係 Saddam Hussein 叫佢做嘅啦。咁即係話佢想 Saddam Hussein 離開科威特，亦都唔好再搞 Iraq 啦。所以成件事就係因為呢件事嘅觸發點，啲人覺得 Saddam Hussein 實在好冇人權，所以佢要離開科威特，更加唔應該繼續去掌管 Iraq。呢一度咧，我想講講 provided an honest justification 呢一個字。provided 咧唔係提供嘅意思，而係 serve as 嘅意思，作為啊。concern for 人權咧就作為一個非常之啲人信以為真嘅一個順理成章嘅理由，去想剷除 Saddam Hussein。但係咧最尾咧呢一句咧就講咗個真相啦，就係 the obvious truth that 見唔見到 that relative clause 啊嘛，即係呢一度開始係應該係 adjective clause 嚟噶噃。OK， 我哋唔好俾佢迷惑到先 ，highlight 起佢。但應該講我哋 highlight 個 main clause。The obvious truth that did not mean 呢一嚿嘢。The obvious truth did not mean that 後邊嘅嘢，即係我哋 label 佢做A 咁先算啦。佢呢度係講 the obvious truth did not mean A。咁 A 係咩啊？呢一個更加明顯嘅真相咧，唔代表一啲 loftier ideals， 應該係打錯咗，應該係 ideas 係嘛？唔係噃，係 ideals 理想。OK，loftier ideals could not catch a ride as well。catch a ride 上車上位啦。OK， 咁佢講咩？唔代表一啲 loftier。OK， 你唔知咩叫 loftier 都唔緊要 ，ideals 係理想應該知嘅，都唔知就而家知啦。一啲理想唔可以上位噶噃。咁我哋都好似都唔係好 get 講緊啲咩啦。佢講 the obvious truth that， 咁我哋望下上面個 truth 係啲咩咯？佢 adjective clause 形容緊個真相啊嘛。That the conflict was really about oil and imperialism。原來呢一個Gulf conflict 去針對 Saddam Hussein 嘅呢一個 conflict，more really is about 油啦，即係 economy 啦。OK， 如果呢個係我覺得係國際時事，平時睇唔睇得，有冇聽新聞嘅一個問題啦，同埋帝國主即係錢啦。OK， 同埋帝國主義，即係其實原來咧。Gulf conflict 嘅出現咧係因為錢，即係為利益啦，同埋帝國主義。Did not mean that 一啲離地啲嘅理想唔可以作為理由噶噃。呢度係回應緊上一句咯，因為啲人覺得其實係真係為人權，我哋要跟隨 Saddam Hussein。下邊就話啦，其實呢一單嘢都係因為錢同埋帝國主義啫，唔代表一啲嘅。離地啲嘅理想，離地其實呢個係高尚嘅意思啊 lofty。一啲離地啲嘅理想唔可以作為表面嘅理由。catch a ride 我嘅理解就係騎咗上去啊嘛。我其實真話真係 as 表面嘅理由咯 ，as 一個口號咯，係啦，唔代表佢唔可以成為單期嘅嗰個口號噶噃。咁所以咧 from paragraph 1咧，我哋已經係 capture 咗咩？首先我哋揾到幾多個 clause 啊？1啦、2啦、3啦、4啦，4個 clause， 呢4個 clause 都好影響究竟其實係5個，因為後邊呢個係 as a noun clause 嚟嘅，所以呢5樣嘢你揾唔揾到佢嘅 clause 咧，係好影響你嘅讀感嘅。如果唔係就會好亂啦。OK， 我哋第一段知道嘅首先就係科威特 BB 係假嘅 ，Belgium BB 係假嘅 ，Iraq 嘅軍隊拎走咗科威特 BB from the incubator 係假嘅。人權作為 Gulf conflict 嘅口號其實係假嘅。真正點解會爆發 Gulf conflict 嘅原因係因為錢，因為 oil 同埋帝國主義，同埋我哋知道 Saddam Hussein 係 control 緊 Iraq 嘅，佢無端端走咗去搞科威特。OK 喺呢個位咧，我想再 remark 少少嘢，就係呢個點解用 and 嘅？唔係 A-E-I-O-U 先用 and 嘅咩？留意用 A 定係用 and 咧，係 based on後邊嗰個字嘅讀音係咪 vowel？ 係 honest 啊嘛，唔係讀 honest 啊嘛，所以 honest 係發緊 O 音嘅時候，佢前面就會用 and。另一個例子 unique。unique 唔係讀 unique 啊嘛，係 unique 啊嘛，其實係 unique 啊嘛，所以前面係唔會用 and 嘅，係用 are 嘅。A unique child, a unique life, a unique entity。OK， 好，咁我哋去望一望啲題目先啦，不如。According to the author， 以下邊一樣嘢係真嘅咧 ？Forward the BB 有冇俾 Iraq troops remove from 個 incubator？ 打錯咗，唔好意思，冇啦，唔係真嘅啦，所以 Belgian BB 係 slaughtered by German troops， 佢都冇俾人殺到啦，因為 supposedly 都唔係真嘅咯。The author is convinced that the reason for Gulf War was is convinced that 啊嘛，咁即係話佢都知道人權唔係真嘅啦。OK， 亦都知道其實 A 其實係呼應緊 B 啊嘛，想將 Saddam Hussein removed from the power in Iraq 呢樣嘢只不過係美其名嘅啫嘛，都係，所以都唔係真嘅。Lovely idea 離地嘅理想其實即係 human right 咯，都唔係真噶嘛，所以答案係 C， 錢同埋帝國主義。佢想拎邊個嘅油咧？咁可能下邊會有暗示咯，係咯，啲油係邊個嚟咁樣咯。The author feels that a lot of people see the cause of Gulf War as have been， 咁呢個應該好明顯啦，好多人都以為呢個係 yet 嗰一句啊嘛，好多人都以為 Gulf War 係因為人權咯，係啦，咁啊 deporting Palestine from 呢個係第二段嘅嘢嚟㗎啦，我哋而家即將就會睇，咁一定唔係呢一個啦。Less honourable motives 其實咪就係呢一個咯，唔光彩嘅動機其實咪就係為錢同埋為帝國主義咯。講真 ，less 點解佢會用 less honourable 呢個字咧？其實係用得好聰明㗎，因為講真，錢唔係唔重要啊，帝國主義喺某啲人眼中都唔係唔重要啊，只不過佢冇人權咁好聽啫嘛，明唔明啊？所以冇咁光彩就係呢個意思咯。好啦，咁跟住就我哋要去第二段啦噃。好，第二段 ，But any fantasies that OK 一嚟就整個adjective clause 俾你彈下，咁一定又係唔好俾佢掩蓋咗先，揾翻嗰個主句出嚟。That were swiftly dashed SV 啦 ，were swiftly dash。OK， 咁所以一啲幻想咧好快就破滅咗啦。咁所以乜嘢幻想好快就破滅咗啊？上邊先講緊人權呢樣嘢係假噶嘛。咁下邊應該就係講緊人權呢一個幻想已經好快破滅咗啦。咁我哋睇下佢解釋啲乜嘢咯。呢一個 adjective clause 係咩？佢應該係 talk about the fantasy，right？ 佢就話美國咧 was about to use its superpower status to act as guarantor of such rights. Of what right? Human rights, right？ 佢話啲人咧會幻想美國咧係時候會用佢嘅超能力嘅 status， 即係啲人會覺得佢係人權嘅最高峰啦，係咪？佢哋啲人就覺得美國係時候會用呢一個權力去把關住呢個 guarantor 係擔保嘅意思啊，擔保人啊 ，act as a guarantor 啊嘛。OK， 所以佢 act as a guarantor 即係其實 to guarantee 嘅意思咯。係啦，可能你作文可以用到啦。As a guarantor of human rights， 即係啲人就會發現咧，其實好快美國嘅呢個維護人權嘅幻想咧，好快就幻滅咗啦。咁一定係有啲嘢發生先會幻滅嘅啦。咁後邊就解釋緊呢樣嘢啦。佢就話啦 ，High up on the roster of shame comes Washington's failure to stop the Croats deporting all the 哇，超長，又係啦。 揾翻個 SVO 先。首先咧，一嚟就整咗個 noun clause 俾你嘆下喎。High up on the roster of shame comes， 即係呢個係 subject。Washington failures to stop， Washington's failure to stop， 即係呢一單嘢應該係後邊呢一度全部成句應該係講佢失敗咗啲咩啦。OK， 咁所以我哋唔好睇住。OK， 咁即係話 OK， 我哋再睇咩叫 high up on the roster of shame。首先咧 ，roster of shame 咧係一個 idiom 嚟嘅。如果你唔知咧，就學咗佢啦。講真，我睇嘅時候咧，我都唔知嘅，我都唔知咩叫 roster of shame 嘅。咁 high up on 啊嘛 ，high up on 即係 high up 我知係咩啦 ，high up 就係例如 high up on the podium， 佢喺嗰樣嘢上邊啊嘛，在乜乜之上啊嘛，仲要好高添。OK， 所以 high up in the podium 即係可能佢贏咗啦。喺一樣嘢之上，咁我又見到 shame 呢個字喎，咁我就諗，我真係話應該係代表一啲羞恥嘅嘢咧。原因就係因為華盛頓嘅一個失敗啦。咁我即係 anyway 啦，其實我唔 get 咩叫 roster of shame 係唔會影響到我嘅理解噶嘛，所以我就知道，我早知啦。華盛頓嘅衰咧就應該係因為呢個就導致到呢個幻想破滅啦。OK， 咁 roster of shame 咧其實係等於即係一啲 action of failure 啦，或者係 disgrace 嘅。咁呢個咧我係喺網上面揾翻嚟嘅。OK， 咁 high up on 咧就係喺呢個 action 係失敗嘅 action 之上啦。OK， 即係佢被擺咗喺呢一樣嘢之上啦。Comes 其實就等於係啦 ，comes 其實就等於嘅意思。咁就係呢個 Washington failure， 所以話我哋呢一個句子嘅點樣理解就係 Washington's failure 其實就造就咗美國嘅失敗，美國嘅羞恥。OK， 咁咧呢一個嘅 comes 呢一個嘅用字咧，我會話佢有少少鋪墊嘅意味嘅，佢有少少即係為後邊呢一個人有啲隆重介紹嘅感覺，即係例如你咪成日都聽到 Here comes 嘅，Here comes 邊個嘅，Here comes Terence Lam 咁樣，咁而家有請林家謙啊嘛，咁所以 comes 一定後邊係有一個比較，一係你就想揭曉佢係乜嘢，一係就有啲重量嘅人物或者一啲事，咁所以你可以點樣用咧 as 一個 writing 嘅時候，你就可以講話例如係first among the competitors of fencing in the Olympic Games， 就係 comes at 家長。咁你係介紹緊 at 家長呢個人啦，你前面係 as a noun clause first among the competitors of fencing in the Olympic Games 啊嘛，呢一成嚿嘢喺花劍入邊係第一名嘅嗰個就係張家朗啦。咁呢個咪就係 SVO 前面係 noun clause 嘅一個function 咯。OK， 咁你可以作文可以睇下，或者 oral 可唔可以用到呢一樣嘢啦？咁但係當然 oral 咧，我建議你真係好熟呢一個你先好講。如果唔係講錯咧，你成個人都亂咗。咁 anyway， 我哋睇下華盛頓衰咩先。華盛頓咧，你佢係第七個，係咪第七啊？係啦，第幾啊？哦，第六個啦，第六個出現嘅人物啦。OK， 咁佢衰乜啊？就係佢停止唔到科威特deporting all the countries Palestine。 OK， 第七個。OK， 我哋而家成日都聽到 Free Palestine 㗎啦。OK， 咁應該知道 Palestine 係一個國家 ，Palestinian resident 就係 Palestine 嘅人啦。OK， 咁我哋知道嘅就係科威特應該係 deport 緊，即係逐出境外，將一啲 Palestine 嘅人逐出嘅境外。OK。 華盛頓冇阻止到呢件事。咁我其實應該近排大家有睇新聞，我都知逐出境外其實應該唔係一件好好嘅事啦。華盛頓即係 as 美國嘅一個，佢應該要維護人權，應該要阻止呢件事發生，但係佢冇。好啦，咁然後佢後邊咧仲俾多個 adjective clause 嚟去解釋點解佢哋要逐出啲 Palestine 人，因為科威特啲人覺得 Palestine 嘅人應該係 they assumed that they collectively to have been support Saddam， 即係呢啲 Palestine 嘅人應該係 support Saddam， 咁上面講咗 Saddam 係對佢哋唔好噶嘛，所以就要逐出佢哋出境外咯。OK， 咁但係呢一樣嘢其實係佢哋無端端佢 assume 啫喎，佢 assume 啲人係支持 Saddam 啫喎，仲要你唔可以肯定係咪全部人都係支持 Saddam， 你就無端端將佢哋全部逐出境外，呢樣嘢絕對違反人權啦。但係美國華盛頓對於呢樣嘢有冇做任何嘢咧？冇 failure to stop， 佢冇停止到，佢可能有做嘢嘅，但係佢冇，總之做唔到咯。呢一個咪正正解釋咗佢維護人權呢樣嘢其實已經幻滅咗咯。後邊繼續 ，indeed 確實乜嘢啊？The contrast between 嗱，我哋知道啦 ，the contrast between A and B 係咪？咁我哋睇下乜嘢同乜嘢之間嘅對比，我哋揾下 A 同 B 係咩先啦。The contrast between Washington's inertia in Kuwait and its and 啊嘛，咁已經揾到個 A 啦。And 就係 its recent protests to Israel about the deportation of Palestinians speaks for itself。OK， 咁呢個係 B 啦。咁呢個個主句係咩啊 ？The contrast speak for itself。Between 乜呢個係補充嚟㗎咋。OK， 你記住要揾翻清楚啊，因為唔會你諗下，如果你睇成 Its recent protest to Israel about the deportation of Palestinians speaks for itself， 唔 make sense 㗎嘛？咩叫做佢最近嘅抗議？即係最近對於以色列 deport 啲 Palestinian 人咧就抗議啦，就 speak for itself 啦，係唔 make sense 㗎嘛？係 the contrast speaks for itself 啊嘛。如果你知咩叫 speaks for itself 嘅話，而家就如果你唔知，而家知啦，係不攻自破嘅意思，或者係我會話係不言而喻嘅意思，即係你唔使講都睇得出啦。OK， 即係例如點樣用呢一個句式啊？就係 the contrast between Kevin saying that he did not study and his perfect score speaks for itself。就係阿 Kevin 話佢冇温書，但係佢拎100分。咁究竟佢係咪真係冇温書咧 ？Speaks for itself。咁所以就呢度係乜嘢啊 ？A 係咩啊？乜嘢同乜嘢作對比啊？華盛頓 inertia， 如果你讀 geog 或者 physics 應該知咩叫 inertia， 就係唔喐啊嘛，冇 no displacement 啊嘛。冇喐啊嘛，咁擺喺呢度嘅 context 即係佢冇做任何嘢咯，即係話佢用英文嚟講，即係佢 turn a blind eye 咯，或者再準確啲嚟講，應該係 fold her arms 咯，即係佢完全冇做任何嘢，淨係企喺度。Inertia in Kuwait， 即係佢冇阻止到 Kuwait 去 deport 嗰啲 Palestinians， 同埋相反佢做緊啲乜嘢？佢對於以色列咧去 deport 啲 Palestinian 人咧，又喺度譴責喎。Speaks for itself， 即係話美國佢要鬧以色列，但係佢自己真係要做嘢去幫科威特入邊嘅 Palestinians 嘅時候，佢又冇出手，即係話佢得個講字咯。Speaks for itself， 證明美國係得個講字咯。呢度就有個問題啦，如果佢 DSE 要出嘅話，就係作者對於呢一個嘅華盛頓或者作者對於 US 嘅睇法係啲乜嘢咧？有咩態度咧？偽君子咯 ，hypocrite 呢個字咧，我唔知而家仲會唔會出啦，但係以前啦，反正以前嘅 reading 一定成日出現嘅 hypocrite， 又或者如果唔係 hypocrite 嘅話，你會成日都會見到 irony 呢個字嘅諷刺啊嘛。 呢個唔係一個諷刺，如果佢亦都可以問你嘅 What is the irony in paragraph 2？咪就係華盛頓明明見到 Israel deport 啲人又要出聲，但係當佢面對到科威特嘅時候，佢又乜都唔做咯。佢可以出2分 irony 嘅，OK。好，繼續。And the incredible number of promises that the US had to make。呢個成嚿嘢係個 subject 嚟嘅。The incredible number of promises that US had to make。你唔好見呢個 that 就即刻好興奮先。雖然個 that 呢一嚿嘢係形容緊嗰個 promise。OK， 咁但係呢個成嚿嘢應該係成個主句嘅 subject 嚟嘅。睇埋 in order to， 嗱，呢度應該開始咧就唔係個主句嚟嘅。咁我哋揾埋個 verb 同埋 object 先，就應該係 leave 啦，係咪？咁 arguably 係 adverb 嚟㗎嘛，佢形容有個 leave，所以包佢埋入去個主句啦。所以 arguably leaves human rights more impaired than before the conflicts， 即係話美國落埋晒呢啲嘅空頭支票。OK， 美國開嘅呢啲空頭支票咧，有人就會覺得 arguably 令到 leave human rights more impaired，leave something more。嗱，呢個係一個句式啦。She was left unattended. Don't leave your belongings unattended。令到你嘅個人物品不受看管啊嘛。OK，leave human rights more impaired 就係令到人權呢樣嘢更加脆弱、更加破爛。Before the conflict， 即係話美國呢一樣嘢，呢啲空頭支票，令人權仲衰過之前。好啦，中間嗰個 clause 係咩嚟㗎 ？In order to get intention， 呢個係一個 adverb clause 啦，因為佢呢度係形容緊 make 呢個字。點解美國要落呢啲承諾啊？係因為想 get international backing， 得到全世界嘅支持。backing 啊嘛，支持或者 routing for the US-led Operation Desert Storm。What is this？ 可能你會問，哇，咩嚟㗎？我當初睇咧都唔知係咩嚟嘅。可能我就知道，我仲諗得仲衰啲添，我以為係美國嘅一個 program 啦 ，Operation Desert Storm 啦，係去因為透過去 sell 人權呢一單嘢咧，去得到全世界嘅支持。原來佢暗中想推一啲某啲嘅 program， 但原來唔係。呢個 Operation Desert Storm 咧，其實就係救火。所以去到而家呢一個位，我哋就知道故事嘅前提係導火線係無端端有班 Iraq 嘅軍人走咗入去掹走一啲科威特嘅 BB from the incubator。當然呢樣嘢係假㗎啦，引發咗啲人覺得喂，唔得，我哋要移除 Saddam Hussein， 所以美國就出征呢一個嘅 Iraq 啦。美國出征呢一樣嘢就叫做救火，就係 Operation Desert Storm。我覺得你多多少少要有啲歷史嘅資訊，你先可以好清晰咁明白緊發生咩事。我反正係唔知嘅，1994我都未出世，但係我都要做咗啲 research 先真係理清到究竟乜嘢發生啲乜事。But as a student， 你可能未必咁清楚一啲嘢嘅時候，你就唯有透過拆句、拆 clause 去揾翻乜嘢打乜嘢，然後你就會發現其實有時有啲字你都唔知係咩，例如我都一開始都唔知咩叫 Operation Desert Storm 嘅。咁但係你就應該反正會知道嘅就係佢助長咗，反正佢助長咗 US 去推行到呢一樣嘢咯。咁然後當然啦，事後叻嘅人就會解釋到點解佢點解依度可以暗示得到 Operation Desert Storm 其實就係救火。遠推翻 Paragraph 1就係因為成件事用糖衣去包裝嘅，一直就係美國去出征嘅呢件事，一直就係救火啫嘛。咁所以下邊呢個都係講緊包裝嘅時候，好容易就聯想到兩樣嘢咯。所以難嘅題目佢就可以出啦。What does the Operation Desert Storm refer to？ 又或者佢可以出 who led the Gulf War？ 咁其實就係 the United States，the US。順帶一提，如果你要答美國，你記住 US 前面要加個 the United States。好嘛 ，OK， 咁啊第二段就睇完啦，咁我哋又係去望一望啲題目啦。In the sentence, indeed, the contrast between 即係啱啱嗰個得個講字啦、偽君子啦。The author is criticizing the US for its hypocrisy。咁呢個應該係啱噶啦。Praising 絕對唔會係讚揚 US 啦。你 speaks for itself， 明知係串緊美國噶啦，仲點會係讚緊佢咧？唔係啦。Contrasting two different countries' approach to deportation。咁但係佢呢一度佢係想透過呢一個對比去帶出美國係偽君子，而唔係講緊究竟 forward 就點樣 deport Palestine 同啲人，同埋後者即係以色列點樣 deport 啲人啊嘛。佢亦都冇真係刻意去解釋兩者係點樣 deport 啲人嘅唔同，所以都唔係好啱咯。佢係咪想 protest， 即係個作者自己想 protest 呢個 deportation？ 更加唔係啦，佢純粹想透過呢樣嘢講美國係偽君子咋嘛。A 啦。Speaks for itself， 不言而喻，唔使講都知，不攻自破啊嘛。Needs no comment。唔係 does not need to be criticized， 講係要 criticize， 只不過係太明顯啦，你都睇到啦，即係咁明顯嘅都唔使講啦，你都知啦嘅意思咯。Make a loud protest 咁梗係唔係啦，佢都冇講出嚟啦。Cannot be prevented from talking， 咁呢句本身望到都棘棘地啦，就不能夠from 添，唔好意思，阻止唔到佢講嘢。係啦，就唔知佢講緊乜。最後，我哋知道嘅係美國開呢啲空頭支票，令到人權仲衰過之前啊嘛。咁所以 the author feels that standing of human rights， 即係人權嘅 standing around the world， 即係人權嘅重要性啦。As opposed to before the Gulf War， 仲差咗啊嘛 ，weaker 咯，唔係 non-existent。佢話咩啊 ？more impaired 噶嘛，即係 more 破爛啫嘛，唔係冇咗。咁呢個就太極端啦。OK， 好，咁就呢個就係第二段啦。好，我哋嚟到第三段啦。一開始咧就唔係好難嘅。Going to war turned out unsurprisingly to have been an inefficient way of upholding human rights。咁咪就話啦，打仗咧明顯唔會係一個想推崇人權嘅一個好有效嘅方法啦。OK， 即係佢唔係一個有效嘅方法去 uphold human rights。OK， 即係去 boost 人權啦嚇。我嘅理解係 unsurprisingly 明顯啦。所以咧，作者嘅態度都好明顯，佢對於戰爭呢樣嘢一定係 critical 嘅，即係帶有批評。有人就話好明顯喎，打仗點會係人權？打仗一定有人死，你仲同我講人權 ？OK， 咁 the other reason for going to war， 佢呢度好好啦，俾咗兩個 dash 你。佢呢度咧，大可以改做 which is the dismantling of Iraq's offensive capability was， 咁我哋揾翻個主句出嚟先咯。The other reason for going to war was also undermined by the outcome， 即係話佢有另外一個打呢個交科嘅原因嘅，都係 undermine， 即係都係其實做唔到咯。原因係佢嘅 outcome， 佢出到嚟嘅效果做唔到，即係其實呢度打仗係有反效果。導致到達到唔到本身嘅目的啊嘛，即係話咁另外一個目的係咩啊？佢想呢度就講咗俾你聽啦。Dismantling of Iraq's offensive capability 呢一個佢係想達到嘅結果嚟嘅。本身理想嘅結果應該就係話 the dismantling 瓦解啦，瓦解 Iraq 嘅 offensive capability。 capability 係能力啊嘛。咁如果係 Iraq 嘅能力，即係國力啦，一個國家嘅能力啊嘛。offensive 即係你好 offensive 喎，即係你搞到我啦，即係話佢開始干預到其他，或者對其他人帶嚟威脅嘅意思咯，帶有威脅啦。即係簡單嚟講，打呢場仗有兩個目的，第一人權啦，第二就係去 dismantling Iraq 嘅 offensive capability，即係想削弱佢國力啦。但係明顯地打呢場仗兩樣嘢都做唔到啦。上邊已經解釋咗啦，呢樣嘢唔係真係為人權。第二樣嘢而家下邊應該就會解釋啦，點解佢做唔到 dismantling of Iraq's offensive capability？ 又或者其實唔係嘅，你諗下打仗你打碎咗 Iraq， 咁你一定係搞掂咗佢國力㗎。咁我哋就要諗點解呢一個都要做 undermine by the outcome 咧？我哋就要諗低一層啦。點解佢想削弱 Iran 嘅國力先？其實都係Iraq 啊，唔好意思啊。其實都係唔想佢一人獨大啫嘛，唔想佢搞着其他人啊嘛，想減低世界嘅威脅啊嘛。OK， 呢個係佢真正想達到嘅目的嚟噶嘛。即係講真 ，Iraq 勁唔勁我唔理啦，你 offend 到我啊嘛。所以其實都係唔想無端端有個國家 offend 到我啫嘛，即係 offend 到美國啦。其實就係下邊佢就解釋緊，冇錯。而家你打到 Iraq 咁，佢冇可能可以再搞到科威特多一次噶啦。To mount another invasion， 即係佢去 produce 咯，即係再去發動咯。係佢而家咁樣都俾你打殘晒佢。It is in poor shape too。我覺得呢個係作文都幾好嘅一個字。OK， 即係乜嘢 is in poor shape to 做一樣嘢，咁即係嗰樣嘢冇用啦，就或者嗰樣嘢已經冇能啦。OK，something is in poor shape to do something 咯。True， 即係呢樣嘢佢承認嘅。所以題目 M 佢出一條 M 先問你㗎啦。作者認為以下邊樣嘢係真嘅咧？Iraq 而家已經係冇可能再發動到另一場 invasion 㗎啦。佢可以出嘅 Find a word in paragraph 3 to replace admittedly。咁同 true 咪就係一樣咯。係啊，我承認㗎 admittedly。所以你將佢擺翻為 admittedly。Iraq is in poor shape to mount another invasion.但係 the price of a weakened Iraq， price 唔係價錢啦，代價啦，呢個應該多啲人知嘅。你削弱咗 Iraq 嘅代價，只係會令到佢隔離嘅 Iran 同埋 Syria， 佢係第幾個出場啦？如果啱啱已經數漏咗添，我哋有以色列啦。同埋有 Iran 同埋 Syria 啦，已經咁其實明顯知道 Iran 同 Syria 應該唔係好重要，但係佢都係出現過嘅角色啦。咁 list out 埋啦。OK， 削弱咗 Iraq， 只會令到 Iran 同埋 Syria 增強，即係其實有冇減到世界嘅威脅啊？冇，只不過個威脅換咗人啫嘛。The global arms trade arms。如果你有讀過 history 咧，應該知道咩叫做 armament trade、armament race 啊，唔好意思，係 armament race， 即係軍器、武器嘅意思。全球嘅武器交易咧係冇減弱到嘅，唔係因為呢個交科減弱咗嘅。簡單嚟講就係你雖然打殘咗 Iraq， 但係你冇令到呢樣嘢即係全球 arm trade 呢一樣嘢削弱咗，相反。On the contrary, it has been given a shot in the arm。嗱，講真，我唔知咩叫 give a shot in the arm 嘅，應該係個 idiom 嚟嘅。But 佢冇削弱到，相反，咁佢唔係勁咗，咁你都唔知點解啦。相反，佢仲勁咗咯。所以我覺得佢都係可以出一個 find a phrase in paragraph 3 that can replace enhance 或者係 enhanced， 咁咪就係 been given a shot in the arm。嘅意思咯。咁 Amnesty International has reported，OK、呢個係一個媒體啦，明顯。OK， 佢應該要 italic 咗佢嘅。has reported that UK companies UK 啦，英國都出埋嚟啦。UK 嘅 company 呢啲嘅英國嘅一啲商人啦，一啲嘅公司啦 ，businessmen 啦 ，continue to export instruments of death and torture。會令到人死同埋受折磨嘅一啲 instrument 啦，一啲用具咯。呢啲英國嘅 company 咧係持續將佢哋出口嘅 export。Econ 人應該會知啦。OK，around the world。OK， 咁佢驗證咗呢個 global arm trade 係 given a shot in the arm 啦，including a high-tech torture chamber 高科技嘅折磨 chamber，OK， 即係我估係一啲刑具啦。OK， 即係咯，嗰啲密室有好多刺嗰啲 chamber 啦，我估。To another friendly oil state Dubai oil state 佢有好多油，上邊 Gulf War 係為咗油。我哋知道而家油係邊個啦？嚟自杜拜嘅。OK， 佢係第12個出場嘅人物啦。佢有油啊！英國咧持續咧都會將啲武器周圍運添，甚至計埋咧佢仲將一個刑具咧 send 咗俾杜。咁啊 ，friendly 呢個字咧就暗示咗 UK 同杜拜咧應該係友好關係啦。佢哋有利益輸送啦，佢哋有合作嘅關係啦。OK， 咁所以 OK， 咁因為括起咗噶嘛，咁所以我哋可以揞住佢睇，唔好睇住先。佢就話啦，所以成句主句應該就係有個機構 report咗呢件事，呢個係呢一句嘅主句。咁佢 report 咗啲乜嘢？有啲 UK 嘅商人咧就持續將一啲嘅刑具咧就運嚟運去 ，with remarkably little interference from British government。 with 呢一樣嘢係一個 adverb clause 嚟嘅，因為佢continue to export 呢一樣嘢係受到英國政府好少嘅干預。OK， 咁英國咧呢度出現咗兩個持份者，分別係佢嘅 company 同埋佢嘅政府。我哋知道啦，如果一啲嘅商人 OK 喺 UK 啊嚇，如果一啲嘅商人佢要將佢嘅軍器運俾其他嘅國家，咁係一啲軍器啦，政府理應要介入噶嘛。OK， 介入啦，但係事實話俾你聽冇，即係英國政府都隻眼開隻眼閉咯。佢係默許呢一件事嘅發生咯，即係佢係咪支持咧就唔知嘅，反正佢冇干預啦。所以呢度係可以出一條 true or false 嘅。British 嘅 government 係咪 support arm trade 咧？我覺得係 non-given 嘅，因為佢冇干預啫，唔代表佢支持，但係都唔可以話 false， 佢係中立嘅，佢冇干預啫。OK， 咁啊呢個係篇文章表面帶到俾我嘅意思，實質佢係咪支持？我會話即係 yes。Speaks for itself。好啦 ，OK， 咁就第三段就講到呢度啦。咁啊，望下啲題目啦又。The author feels that since Gulf War the global arm trade 係咪 diminish 咧？一定唔係啦 ，stronger than ever 啦。It's now controlled by powers such as 嗱呢一個 Syria and Iran 咧，第9同埋第10個角色咧，佢只不過係攞嚟解釋你冇咗 Iraq 就會多咗 Syria 同埋 Iran。但係唔係講緊 global arm trade 係由佢哋 control 嘅 global arm trade 應該係 control by UK 嘅，因為 UK 係 export 噶嘛。OK，has helped to rearm Iraq 咁就唔係啦 ，Iraq 係 in a push shape 喎 to mount another invasion 嘛。OK， 咁所以就 B 係好明顯嘅。OK。 咁佢對 UK 嘅 attitude 係乜嘢咧？絕對唔係 supportive 啦，都唔係 neutral 啊，更加唔係 defensive 啦。嗱，defensive 同 supportive 係同類。點解係 critical 啊？佢依一度成段嘅目的係想講戰爭帶嚟嘅反效果。佢唔單止冇令到世界嘅威脅少咗，反而仲令到世界嘅威脅係大咗㗎。It has not been diminished. It's even been given a shot. 仲勁咗啊！而勁咗嘅呢一樣嘢係因為 UK 繼續 export instrument 啊嘛。佢絕對唔會想呢件事發生㗎喎。佢作者佢成篇文嘅嗰個語調就係覺得你哋班人偽君子。你哋喺度善用，即係用人權做藉口，其實就係喺度揾錢，喺度做利益輸送。咁佢又點會中意 UK 咧？呢個就你當你聽你個 friend gossip 咯。有啲嘢佢唔使講得咁清，你都知佢好憎某一個人噶嘛。OK， 好咁啊，係啦。咁然後就下邊咧就已經係去到下一段嘅部分啦。第四段 OK， 我哋持續做翻啱啱要做嘅嘢就係揾 clause 啦，係咪 ？One lesson to be learned from the war is that 佢係 as 一個 noun clause 啦。That both in the area of human rights and arms control, national government cannot be trusted to enforce international agreements。成嚿嘢係 as a object 嘅。咁 is 係個 verb 啦。One lesson to be learned from the war 呢個都係一個 noun clause 嚟嘅。所以呢度有兩個 noun clause， 一個 as subject， 一個 as object。其中一個從呢個 Gulf War 可以學到嘅嘢，就係一啲國民嘅政府咧，國家嘅政府咧，對於維護人權同埋控制佢哋喺軍力上嘅一啲能力咧，呢啲政府都係信唔過嘅。suppose 啦嚇，佢後邊講咩 ？To enforce international agreements。如果呢啲國家係信唔過去維護人權同埋 arm control 嘅話，即係話 international agreement 應該 suppose 就係做緊呢兩樣嘢咯。OK， 就係想保護 human right 同埋 arm control， 而政府係信唔過嘅。OK， 咁我哋可以從呢一句得知到呢一個嘅嘢啦，而且我哋都知道 national agreement 嘅角色咯，就係去有保護 human right 啦，同埋 arm control。OK，the revelation， 如果你有讀聖經，你都知係啟示嘅意思啦。啟示 this week that OK， 呢一個係 adjective clause 啦。我哋揾翻個主句出嚟先。The revelation this week that thanks to drives home the point。The revelation this week drives home the point。中間成句都係 clause 嚟嘅。佢講咩啊 ？That Iraq may have 我哋 of course 先講咗咩叫 drives home the point 先。呢個啟示 drives home the point。上面講緊乜？政府信過 drives home the point 就係講緊證明咗呢一點嘅意思。呢個咧你寫議論文咧，或者寫 debate script 咧係好好嘅。以下呢個例子咧就 drives home the point 啦。OK， 佢再重新論述咗我嘅論點啦。OK， 就係 this example drives home the point。The example that 乜乜乜乜乜乜乜乜乜，你學佢用 clause 咯 ，drives home the point。咁乜嘢證明咗政府信唔過啊 ？Iraq may have had a nuclear weapons capability throughout the Gulf War。原來咧打呢場 Gulf War 嘅時候咧 ，Iraq 咧有核武嘅。嚇？點解嘅 ？Thanks to Germans carelessness。原來係因為德國嘅原因，所以 Iraq 有核武。嗱，我哋唔知德國同 Iraq 嘅關係係咩？一個學生冇理由知道咁多。如果你知道咁，你係咯，你做呢樣嘢有做呢條題目有優勢啦。But then 我哋唔知道佢哋究竟 Iraq 同埋 German 嘅關係係啲乜嘢。我哋只會知道嘅就係 Iraq 會應該可以控制得到。German 本來可以控制得到 Iraq 有冇核武嘅。 我哋唔知 German 係賣核武俾 Iraq 嘅嗰個人啦，定係 German 有啲乜嘢 treaty 同 Iraq sign 咗，係要 mon 住 Iraq 等佢冇核武嘅，我哋唔知。總之我哋知道就係 German 佢唔小心係事實，令到 Iraq 有核武。OK， 後邊佢加咗個括號 ，like British negligence over the supergun affair。呢度佢俾多咗個補充資料啦，去講其實 UK 都係一樣。UK 對於 supergun affair 即係又係有啲超勁嘅武器啦，超強武器啦。佢咧都係唔理嘅 negligence。OK， 咁呢條我覺得佢嘅呢一句嘅出題目嘅價值就係去出條 true or false 係咯，問你以下邊個係啱咯，係啦。咁但係其實佢對於成篇文章sorry 成段咧意義唔係真係咁多嘅，咁我哋遮住咗佢先啦。總之就係佢講話一個實質嘅例子，我哋知道 Iraq 咧原來有核武嘅，因為德國證明德國信唔過。證明咗佢上面嘅論點咯，證明政府係信唔過嘅，去啱 control 同埋 human right 方面。In addition, the collapse of Soviet Union。OK， 我哋第13個角色出現咗啦，蘇聯。And the resulting OK， 呢度有 and， 即係前面有第一樣嘢同埋第二樣嘢，呢兩樣嘢蘇聯嘅瓦解同埋 the resulting 嗱，我哋知道以下嘅呢一樣嘢咧。應該係因為蘇聯瓦解而造成嘅，因為佢 result 啊嘛。呢一樣嘢一 result 咗二，好啦，蘇聯瓦解result 咗啲咩啊 ？Unregulated international bazaar in weapons that has sprung up。首先拆句先 ，that has sprung up 呢個係一個 adjective clause 形容緊 international bazaar in weapon 咯。我哋將佢連起咗佢先咯。好啦，咁呢度真係成嚿嘢係一課噶啦。Unregulated 嘅 international bazaar in weapon， 咩叫 international 全球啦 ？bazaar 咧 market， 如果你讀 Geog 應該知咩叫 bazaar， 唔知而家知。全球嘅武器嘅一個 market 咧係 unregulated 咧係 sprung up 咗嘅，都係崛起咗啦。因為蘇聯瓦解，全球嘅武器嘅市場咧係 unregulated 嘅咧，即係不受規管啦。管啦，咦？管係咩啊？管啊，就崛起咗啦。我可以出條題目問蘇聯嘅角色係咩啊？蘇聯理應係去 regulate international bazaar of weapon， 或者去 regulate the international trade of weapon， 但係因為蘇聯瓦解咗，導致到而家呢一個嘅 international trade of weapons 就變得 unregulated， 好多嘅市場就崛起咗啦。依兩樣嘢 ，the collapse and the resulting unregulated makes it harder than ever to rely on suppliers on weapons to police the world。首先 make 一同埋二啦，就係話一同埋二。令到有一樣嘢難咗，乜嘢難咗啊 ？To rely on the suppliers of weapons to police the world， 即係話一同埋二嘅出現，令到我哋以前咧明明係可以依賴 suppliers of the weapons， 即係你哋安分守己、信任制度係咪？佢哋本身都唔會做得咁盡、咁過分，係咁將啲做買賣自己賺多啲錢，因為可能有蘇聯啦。OK， 咁因為佢哋安分守己就可以 police 到。我哋知 police 係做咩噶嘛？維護治安噶嘛。咁如果係一個全球嘅level 嚟講，咁應該就係講緊去維穩咯，係啦，即係去保護翻大家嘅安全啦。OK， 即係去 safeguard 啦。我嘅理解會係 OK。咁即係話，因為蘇聯瓦解，令到全球嘅嗰個 unregulated international market of weapon 崛起咗，令到我哋以前嘅 suppliers of weapon 咧已經信唔過啦，佢哋已經不能夠再維穩啦。OK， 我會出一題 Who are the suppliers of weapons? Who used to police the world? 係邊一個將啲武器運嚟運去啊？我哋上面知道嘅，首先一定有 UK。第二個 Germany 計唔計呢？我會覺得有機會計嘅，原因係 Germany 佢用咗 carelessness 呢一個字，即係話呢一樣嘢會發生係因為 careless，因為 German 唔夠謹慎啊嘛。而家呢啲 suppliers 已經信唔過咯喎，咁 German 仲信唔信得過呢？ German 都信唔過，咁所以 German 我覺得有機會可能係其中嘅 suppliers of weapon 咯，俾核武呢一個嘅 Gulf War，sorry 俾核武呢一個嘅 Iraq 咯，係啦，咁啊呢個等大家去思考一下。我哋睇埋第5段揾埋啲 clause 先啦。In the field of arm control, part of the answer must be strengthening of verification procedures carried out by United Nations。首先呢度有一個嘅 clause 啦，係一個 adjective clause。What 係 the procedure that is carried out by United Nations。好，我個問題係咩 ？Answer to what？ 咩答案啊 ？Part of what answer？咁上邊佢上一段佢講嘅就係話，其實政府咧係如果你話叫佢搞人權同埋 arm control 咧係信唔過嘅。咁所以乜嘢先信得過啊？個問題就喺度咯。究竟應該點做啊？所以個 question， 我覺得可以出一條 short quick 嘅就係 What is the question？ 或者係第5段 is the answer to what question？OK，paragraph 5 is the answer to what question？ 咁你就要自己寫啦。咁可能就會係 how to safeguard human rights and have arm control。OK，part of the answer 即係去做到 human right 同埋 arm control， 一定係加強查實嘅工作。邊個做㗎？聯合國做嘅。佢呢度好人俾咗個 checking 你，我就覺得唔使嘅。佢可以出一條 find a word in paragraph 5 to replace the word checking， 咁你就要寫到 verification 啦。咁驗證呢個字其實應該識㗎嘛 ，as a 中六嘅學生，驗證查實去 check 清楚。OK 係啦，同陣 check 下，一定要加強檢，即係啦，即係去觀察，去嗰啲叫咩啦？即係你去監察啦 ，OK 係啦，即係去做一啲嘅 investigation 啦，去做一啲 supervising 嘅工作啦。聯合國就出現咗第14個角色 ，Any non-proliferation treaty。non-proliferation treaty 咧，我覺得係講緊避免其中一個國家太過獨大嘅事，因為 proliferation 係講緊增大啊嘛，增多啊嘛。咁 non-proliferation treaty 即係講緊一啲嘅條約，去避免一啲國家獨大。咁當然呢啲條約係互相制衡啦，國家同國家之間互相制衡，或者係有一個大粒嘢去監察住每一個國家啦。咁簽咗呢個條約嘅嗰啲國家就會受監管咯。呢一個 non-proliferation treaty limiting the production weapons should OK 呢度有一個 clause 啦，有個 adjective clause 形容緊個 treaty。should 即係話呢啲 treaty 咧 should allow for unannounced inspection and auditing。首先 unannounced 冇公佈嘅，即係突擊啦，突擊檢查咯。你啲老師最中意嘅啦，突擊檢查，睇下櫃桶有冇電話。Unannounced inspection. The teacher from the disciplinary department had an unannounced inspection of whether students brought their phones to the school today. And auditing 呢個係查帳啦。咁睇下你啲數咧，會唔會有啲數唔見咗？原來係去咗整軍備嘅咁樣啦。好啦 ，allow for 咧唔係允許喎。你可能會見到 allow 就以為係允許，唔係，其實係考慮。allow for 係一個 phrase 嚟嘅。呢個咧就係我講過嘅一啲字，就係明明都唔係呢個意思嘅喎。我學嘅時候點解係其實 allow for 係個字咯，係考慮到一啲嘅 treaty 咧。 應該要考慮到去做一啲查障同埋突擊檢查。為咗啲咩啊？呢個 treaty 係為咗啲咩啊？去限制整軍器啊嘛。OK， 即係呢個 treaty 嘅目的係為咗 limit the production of weapon， 應該去考慮做突擊檢查同埋查障。But there's no reason why verification should not exist into other fields too。呢一度就我覺得佢有少少離地題啦。總之佢就係講緊呢啲嘅核實嘅工作咧，其實都可以用喺其他軍備以外嘅範疇嘅。咩範疇啊？你可能會問 techniques already developed for weapons inspection， 呢度又有一個 adjective clause 啦。techniques， 咁你揾翻個 main clause 出嚟先啦。Techniques should be transferred to other areas such as the environment， 即係環保上其實你都可以做呢一樣嘢，即係睇下啲公司有冇 greenwashing 咯，有冇綠票啊？即係咩啊？即係話自己環保，但其實唔環保咯。話自己達標準，但其實唔達標準，或者魚目混珠咯。係啦，咁就但我覺得呢度有啲離題啦。But anyway， 佢好似有出一條題目 on this 啦。係啦，咁就呢段有兩個 adjective clause 啦，咁留意翻咯。咁我哋睇下有冇題目問先。The author suggests that any future arm control should include continued inspection conducted by UN 咯。因為佢話 UN 應該要有啲 international 嘅 treaty 係 UN 做㗎嘛，咁呢一樣嘢就係包括長期嘅監察咯。Drafting of additional treaties 咧就好似唔係，好似佢冇講到，我哋諗一諗先。Individual countries imposing their own unannounced inspection， 咁呢個冇講到咯，應該係 UN 做嘅呢一樣嘢，係啊。Stronger limits as part of the answer， 唔知講緊乜，佢係想用 answer 呢個字去 confuse 你啫。OK， 我哋睇下點解 B 唔係啱先。我哋去翻第5段，佢話依啲嘅係 strengthening the verification 啊嘛。Any non strengthen 首先係增強嘅意思啦。佢呢度嘅句子係 any non-proliferation treaty should allow for an announced， 即係 any treaty 啊嘛。而家任何嘅 treaty 理應要考慮到嘛。佢即係講緊佢要改而家嘅 treaty， 而唔係去 draft 一啲新嘅 treaty 啊嘛。所以 B 就唔係咁理想啦。但係 A 咧就啱嘅。What comment did the author make regarding the environment？ 啱我話有啲離題嗰度啦，咁就係睇下啦。Controls similar to those for weapon inspection should be introduced， 係咯，咁呢個係咯。Environmental techniques can be transferred to weapon design， 咁唔係啦，係唔係咯？係咯，好離譜啦呢個。Other fields should be subject to very careful scrutiny。OK， 咩 scrutiny？Scrutiny 就係 verification。佢可以出一條啦。Find a word in paragraph 5 to replace scrutiny。咁呢一個 other fields environment 係 other fields 嘅其中一個 field。咁佢問你佢對於 environment 有咩 comment， 你就同我講有其他嘢需要 careful scrutiny。咁呢個係抽翻出嚟咯，佢就唔係針對 environment 去講，咁唔係一個好理想嘅答案。New techniques have already been developed。As with weapons control， 係唔係 have already been developed 啊？佢話 should be transferred 啫嘛，即係未 transfer 咯，所以答案 A。OK， 咁我哋就去到下一段。好，我哋嚟到最後2段啦。OK， 佢上邊第4段，佢講到話政府喺保護人權同埋 arm control 呢兩方面都信過。下邊第5段佢就話 arm control 應該點做咧？咁佢講咗 arm control 啦，咁佢爭咩未講啊？人權咯，所以佢第6段就講人權啦。人權咧 should be ought to 係 should 啊嘛 ，should be subject to， 咁 subject to 真係受到嘅意思啦。 人權一樣 too，OK，呢個都係你寫 informal writing 可以用嘅一個 structure，就係本身係 human rights ought to be subject to far greater verification too，你就可以講成 human rights too ought to be subject， 但係當然你一定前面講咗一啲嘢，然後 human rights 都一樣，你先可以咁樣用啦。OK， 佢都需要受到更加 far greater 更加大嘅 verification。OK， 咁佢就話以下就係、There has already been some progress here， 目前已經有啲進度㗎啦。嗱，目前已經有啲進度，佢都依然需要 far greater verification 喎。咁所以我會諗嘅就係作者對於呢啲目前嘅進度有啲乜嘢態度咧？咁擺個問號喺度先，我哋睇下佢目前嘅進度有啲乜嘢。Those who adjective clause 啦，咁我哋又係啦，揾翻個主句出嚟先。Those have to submit themselves to a 5-yearly review by a committee in New York。嗰啲人需要每5年交一個 review， 透過咧喺紐約嘅一個 committee 就去交呢個 review。咁邊個要交 review 啊 ？Who signed a UN 聯合國嘅一個 International Covenant on Human and Political Rights in Helsinki， 即係原來呢條條約咧係喺 Helsinki 度簽嘅。OK， 第15個角色啦，已經係嗰啲人啦，喺 Helsinki 簽咗呢條條約嘅人咧，每5年就要交一個 review 啦。OK， 咁 New York 係 US 嚟㗎嘛，所以我就唔計佢係一個新嘅角色啦。OK，but even Iraq has managed to sail through this by telling lies and smiling broadly。佢呢度係咩嚟㗎 ？irony 嚟㗎喎。每5年咧，呢啲簽咗條約嘅國家咧都要交一個 report 去審視自己係咪嗰啲人權啊、政權係達到標準嘅。但係我哋可以見到 Iraq 咧 manage to 即係 can 啦。Can sail through 呢個就係魚目混珠、蒙混過關嘅意思啦。佢點樣蒙混過關啊 ？By telling lies and smiling broadly， 即係佢透過面帶笑容同埋講大話去蒙混過關。我可以出一條問 ，this 係代表乜嘢？咁我會話係呢一個嘅covenant 咯，或者嗰個 5-yearly review 咯，係啦，咁就因為佢呢一個 committee in New York 佢會去唔同嘅國家去做一個 review 噶嘛。OK， 咁所以就佢當呢個 committee 嚟到嘅時候啊，好似某個國家咁樣嚇，將啲嘅建築咧打到立立令 OK， 跟住咧啲人咧就笑嘅，跟住咧完全冇人係唔開心嘅，跟住啲人就會覺得哦呢個國家咧實在係有個好好嘅形象啦 OK， 但係其實唔係真嘅。咁佢呢一度已經第一個例子去講俾你聽，就係呢一個嘅 covenant 有冇用咧？未必。第二 OK， 咁第一個例子冇用啊。The Helsinki process include provision for OK， 首先個主句先。The Helsinki process include provision for 一啲嘢 and for 另外一啲嘢 for A and for B。好啦，首先呢度有兩個字好 confusing， 咩叫 process 同咩叫做 provision？Process 係一啲過程啦 ，OK， 讀擺我都會知噶啦。Provision 係提供啊嘛。嗱，我哋啱啱上面影到一個 provide 咧，係唔係提供嘅意思啦？呢度呢個 provision 都唔係提供嘅意思。首先 process 咧係揾翻咧，原來the Helsinki process 咧係真係一個歷史事件嚟嘅。咁呢個唔知就真係冇辦法啦。OK， 佢係一個 a series of negotiation， 即係佢係。總之就係 Helsinki 呢一個地方做咗嘅一系列嘅嘢啦，佢個名叫做 The Helsinki Process。Include provision 係條款嘅意思，設立條款。乜嘢條款啊？簽署國家需要持續被監察，同埋一啲條款去關注人權濫，即係 abuse。OK， 侵害人權嘅行為，即係話呢個 Helsinki process 提出一啲條款去監察簽署國家，同埋提出侵害人權嘅問題，去 raise question 啊嘛。OK。Most radically 咁呢個most radically 嘛，最激進，咁即係話呢個都仲未係最激進，所以呢度又可以幫我畫一畫啦。呢個係第二件事嚟嘅，第一件事係嗰個 covenant 啦，第二件事係佢一個 process 啦，第三件事最激進嘅就係一個 European Convention on Torture。OK， 就係有一個會議案 torture 啦。OK， 就傾咗啦，就話 allows。OK， 就呢個係個 subject 啦。subject, verb, object, an independent inspection committee。佢 allow 呢一個嘅 committee 去做咩啊 ？Investigate conditions in countries which sign the treaty。OK，at fairly short notice 係一個 adverb clause 嚟嘅噃。你唔使提早3個月通知。你都已經可以做到第檢查，即係咧點解要咁做啊？就係啲人咧成日都話，我而家要上嚟查你，跟住就要3個月先通知嘅喎。如果唔係我哋嗰啲藉口咪就係話，咁我哋人事調動而家咪好麻煩，你咪搞到我間廠停咗咁樣，所以要提前通知。但係提前通知嘅壞處係咩啊？就係你可以做定假咯，你可以排定戲咯。所以呢一個 Convention on Torture 就 allow 一個獨立調查委員會。去唔使提前通知，你只需要提前少少通知就得啦。At a fairly short notice 就已經可以去做一啲調查啦。OK， 咁呢個係第三個最佢覺得最激進、最 radical 嘅一件事。但係佢話 however，committee's report can be published only with the permission of the inspected country。即係咩意思咧？即係而家有個獨立調查委員會去查咗某間公司，查咗佢有冇問題，咁有個 report 啦。但係個 report 出唔出得係間公司話事嘅，咁即係你查到我貪污我都唔俾你講出嚟啦。咁呢一個有冇用咧？我唔理個作者有冇用，我就咁睇都覺得佢冇乜用啊。因為你唔話俾世界聽我有問題，咁有邊個知道我有問題咧？你個獨立調查委員會知道我有問題，唔講得㗎喎，個獨立調查委員會唔講得㗎喎。講咗犯法嘅喎，係違反條例嘅喎，咁所以就係啦。咁所以咧我會話 overall 咧，我覺得應該暗示緊個作者對於呢1、2、3樣嘢咧嘅成效咧，應該係有少少質疑嘅。OK， 去講就係話 far greater verification should be done。我哋快脆睇埋最尾一段啦。The UN is the most appropriate forum。一個平台啦 ，for new verification procedures to be developed。呢一度佢已經 mark 咗一個好重要嘅嘢，就係當如果後邊題目有問到作者對於聯合國係咩睇法、咩態度咧，呢一個係一個好重要嘅指標。因為如果你睇上邊咧，作者嘅口吻咧，佢對於 UK、US 啊、Germany 咧呢啲全部都係失望嘅，都係覺得，唉，你哋全部偽君子嚟嘅。但係下邊咧，雖然佢攞咗成段去數臭聯合國做啲嘢做得麻麻地，但係佢第7段依然一開始同你講，佢都仲係最 appropriate 嘅 forum 去做一啲 new 嘅 procedure， 即係佢對佢都仲有希望嘅。佢只不過而家未做得夠好啫。OK， 咁所以咧，我可以出一條就係 What is the author's attitude towards the UN？The Gulf War was held as，OK， 呢一個咧就作文可以用啦 ，was seen as， 即係睇佢被看成為，即係你可以講話邊間餐廳 was held as the restaurant the eatery second to none in Hong Kong 咁樣啦。呢一個嘅戰爭 ，OK 係由美國帶領嘅呢個戰爭咧，係被視為一個 significant step forward for the UN。咩意思？啲人覺得呢一個戰爭嘅發生對於聯合國嘅發展係一大嘅進步。In reality， 睇嚟作者唔係咁樣諗啦，因為 in reality 係相反嘅意思。真實其實 it was nothing of the sort。Nothing of the sort 就係、你哋有冇聽過就係話 sort of，OK，it is sort of 類似啊嘛。Nothing of the sort 真係完全唔似咯。 即係上邊啲人話呢一個交科咧，對於聯合國係一大嘅進展。現實就係完全 nothing of the sort， 完全唔係嗰回事，即係 nothing close 嘅意思咯。It was nothing close。點解？佢後邊一定會解釋噶嘛？點解？咁佢後邊一定會解釋噶嘛？點解？作者認為呢一個 war 並唔係 UN 嘅一大步，原因係 the hijacking of the organisation by the US in order to 嘛，咁呢度又係一個 adverb clause 啦，因為佢形容緊 sorry 唔係，佢係一個 adjective clause 啦。OK， 我會話嗱 hijacking 咧，呢個係一個 noun 嚟嘅，因為佢變咗 gerund 啊嘛。OK，but then hijack 呢一個動作其實佢嘅目的係呢一個，咁所以我會話佢都係一個 adjective clause，因為佢前面 hijack 劫持呢個字咧，佢變成咗 gerund。美國劫持咗 the organisation， 咁又可以出一題啦。What does the organisation refer to？ 咁前面係講緊 UN 啊嘛，咁即係話美國其實挾持咗 UN 去做乜嘢？去 lend the cloak of human right legitimacy。首先慢慢嚟 ，lend 同 borrow 係相反噶嘛 ，borrow 係借，咁 lend 就係俾啦，給予乜嘢 ？The cloak of human right legitimacy 呢度成嚿係一個 phrase 嚟嘅 ，cloak 係一個遮掩嘅意思。寫都唔識寫添，遮樹，咦呢個樹字嚟個遮掩啦 ，anyway 係啦。遮掩 of human right legitimacy 係 justification 正當性啊嘛。呢個佢做咗個首尾呼應，一開頭佢同大家講呢個交科就係以 human right 美其名一個背後冇咁光彩嘅動機。原來呢單嘢就係因為 US 挾持咗 UN 去將人權呢樣嘢帶喺自己個頭上邊去做 military adventure。咁可能你就會諗啦，喂，佢劫持 UN 唔係應該 borrow 嗰個 cloak of human right legitimacy 咩？睇清楚啲，佢係 lend this thing to the Gulf War， 所以係美國將 human right legitimacy 呢個掩蓋借咗俾呢一個行動，俾咗呢個行動。OK， 咁所以就呢個係解釋咗點解要用 lend 呢一個字啦。呢一次嘅劫持 reduced its credibility。It 係咩啊 ？UN 咯，佢俾人劫持咗，佢俾人食住上 reduce 咗佢嘅可信度，佢嘅公信力咯 ，credibility 或者係 trustworthiness 啦。OK，and left it start 嗱，呢個 left it 乜嘢乜乜乜咧，同上面嗰個 leave the human right more impaired 咧係一樣啊。demoralize 係冇咗士氣咯，失去士氣。咁呢個字咧，我個人覺得咧，你唔知係咩意思都冇所謂，因為我本身都唔知嘅。係啦，失去個叫咩話？咦，啱啱講到嘅喎，係即係失去咗軍心啦，失去咗嗰個，我突然間唔記得咗佢叫咩先，等等啊demoralize 失去咗士氣，係啦，唔好意思，失去咗士氣。所以 a more vigorous and independent system of monitoring human rights this 成個 subject might help prevent it what it 係咩啊？都係個 UN 咯 from being similarly misused 啊嘛。所以佢對到最後嗰段，佢終於兜完場。原來點解成件事會可以用人權嚟做遮掩，係因為當初 US misuse 咗 UN 呢個制度。佢同聯合國講我要打仗，因為阿科威特佢而家侵害人權。OK， sorry 唔好意思，係 Iraq 佢而家侵害人權，我要去攻 Iraq。OK， 咁所以避免呢一個 misuse 再發生咧 ，UN 應該要設立一個更加心狠手辣、更加獨立嘅一個 monitoring system 去監察人權咯。 去避免佢再俾人扇一鑊。完成。咁我哋睇埋最後4條題目啦。What's Iraq's status concerning the UN International Covenant？ 如果你仲記得啱啱嗰個例子，佢一嚟就話呢一個嘅 covenant suppose 係一個 New York 嘅 committee 去唔同嘅國家去做 review， 然後去交翻個 report， 每5年做一次。但係 Iraq 係蒙混過關。Iraq 會蒙混過關，代表佢一定係簽咗呢一個條約，佢先會俾人查啦。所以唔係佢冇簽到啦，但係佢的確係 without any problem， 佢就已經 sailed through the review 啊嘛。所以佢係蒙混過關咯。佢係咪 protesting about being constantly monitored 咧？冇啊。如果佢係 protest 嘅話，佢就唔會扮嘢啦。OK， 佢係咪被 accused of torture by countries 咧？呢個 not given 啦。所以就最直接咯，佢蒙混過關。What effect does the author suggest that the Gulf War has had on the UN？ 上邊佢已經講過 UN 啲人會覺得因為 Gulf War 邁向咗一大步，但現實中唔係啊嘛，所以嗰個答案應該係負面噶嘛。所以睇下邊個答案係負面咯喎。The UN has shown its ability to solve hijacking crisis。佢冇啦，佢冇 show 到，佢俾人 misuse 咗喎。The UN was misused。唔啱啦。The Gulf War has heightened the need for greater UN checks on human rights abuses。嗱，呢個係咪咧？好似係，打個問號。The UN has lost considerable face as a power able to solve world's problem。呢個都聽落好 make sense， 因為佢話佢做得唔夠好，佢數咗3件事佢做得唔夠好，仲要俾人扇一鑊，佢冇把握好啊，所以都好似啱。The Gulf War proved that UN is a powerful force， 咁一定唔啱咯。所以 B 定 C 啱？答案 C。點解 B 唔啱？嗱，首先 C 啱係好 make sense， 因為佢話佢唔係啊嘛，佢 it was nothing of the sort， 佢唔係一個有能力嘅人，佢被質疑佢嘅公信力，同埋佢失去咗士氣啊嘛，所以佢唔係一個 considerable face 去處理一啲國際事件。點解 B 唔啱？睇清楚個題目，個 author suggest 個 Gulf War 嘅 effect。Gulf War 對於 UN 有乜嘢效果？係由 Gulf War 造成，而唔係個作者話。個作者的確有講佢需要有個好啲嘅 system， 但係呢個只不過係個作者話佢可能有效，但係唔係 Gulf War 直接造成。呢個只不過作者 suggest 㗎嘛，唔係 Gulf War 嘅 direct effect。Gulf War 嘅 direct effect 係直接反映咗 UN 係廢嘅。呢個係好直觀。呢個佢唔係 help， 佢只不過提議啫嘛，係咪真冇人知，佢只不過提議啫。所以 B 咧就唔係一個 best choice。 What do the two its in line 58 refer to？ 咁啱啱其實已經講咗啦，兩個都係 UN。 What's the author attitude towards the US？US 做咗啲咩啊？由一開頭已經俾佢鬧偽君子，去到後邊再鬧多佢一次濫用嘅制度，去借一個 human rights 嘅 legitimacy 嘅 cloak 去合理化佢呢個攻陷 Iraq 嘅行為。Critical。呢篇呢係一篇都幾有挑戰性嘅文章，因為我成條片同大家喺度做嘅就係將啲 clause 勾翻出嚟，因為佢哋實在太多資訊啦，所以面對一啲難嘅文章，第一樣嘢一定係揾翻啲主句出嚟，揾翻個 main clause， 定咗自己個心先，然後再慢慢睇梳理翻啲人嘅關係。第二樣嘢 bring up 到嘅就係呢度 list 咗15個國家或者係持份者，其他嘅 vocab 乜嘢 revelation 咩 provision 咩嗰啲 demoralize 你唔知，你都可能透過上問下你估到。但係如果你唔知咩叫 Iraq， 你唔知咩叫做 Saddam Hussein， 你唔知咩叫 UK 唔知 UK 同 US 有咩分別，唔知 UK 原來等於 British，咁呢個真係冇人幫到你。所以我覺得國家名你唔可以唔識，尤其是 listening 其實都有考過國家，要你串翻 Argentina 唔係冇出過。所以我會提議就係國家名多多少少你要有啲涉獵 common sense， 知道有係關錢事，都需要有啲涉獵。然後就係其餘嘅就係喺呢個 document 嘅上邊，我為大家去 highlight 咗好多嘅啱啱講過嘅 idioms， 講過嘅一啲 vocabulary items， 幫佢記低晒佢，嘗試自己造句，然後去 expose 自己去多啲唔同嘅文章，就係進步嘅關鍵啦。咁今條片就嚟到呢度，希望幫到大家。